Yo guys, what is going on? JPS back for another video, and today we're going to be reacting to 5 ways British and American gardens are very different, although in America we call them yards. Anyways, if you're new here, hit the like button, hit subscribe, and let's get right into it. I'm actually super curious about this video because formerly I never really grew up with a garden. We had a couple plants in our yard, but you know what I mean, we didn't spend much time maintaining it, so it never was anything serious. It was just a couple potted plants that we would buy from Home Depot or Lowe's. They're just hardware stores, if you've ever heard of that. But yeah, let's get right into this. I'm actually curious to see.
Sprinklers, I suppose, are pretty essential, and I can tell you from experience, on a hot summer's day, if you're walking down the street and one of them accidentally goes off on you, it can be quite a pleasant experience, unless you're carrying your phone.
Oh.
Hello, I'm Lawrence, and I'm on a quest.
Also another disclaimer or whatever. Shout out to this guy. His channel name is Lost in the Pond. He makes videos basically connecting the UK and America. So if you guys are interested in that type of content, make sure you subscribe to him. I've reacted to a couple of videos and I really enjoy his videos. So if you guys want to check him out or you already know him, make sure you sub to him because he's an awesome guy.
Hello, I'm Lawrence, and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond, and one of those memos pertains to gardens, or should I say, yards, because that's the first memo really. When Americans say that the dogs are playing outside in the yard, that's equivalent to the British saying that the dogs are playing outside in the garden. And actually, while we're on the subject, does anybody else 21 years later wonder if that person ever let the dogs in? Whoever it was, there's a safe bet that those dogs would have experienced a much different yard/garden, depending on whether they were in Britain or America.
Facts.
And since, over the last year, I've done videos outlining the differences between British and American houses, kitchens and bathrooms, I thought now would be a great time to do the same thing with residential yards. And you might be thinking, why would you do a video like this right now when nobody gives a lick about their gardens? And the truth is, I miss having a garden. And also those videos are being picked up by the YouTube algorithm right now, so, you know, I want to capitalize. And so without further ado, here are those ways that British and American yards are very different.
That sounds
I love
good.
that sound.
The truth is, on a warm summer's day, you really can't beat the quiet, relaxing ambience of either country's yards. But think back to summer, think back to your childhood. What is the overriding sound? It could be
Birds.
dogs barking or a builder putting down a mug. But in my experience, if you strip away all of that, the most consistent sound in both countries comes from things with wings. Across much of Britain, the winged creature in question is a wood pigeon.
What the hell?
They hang out in people's gardens. That's what they do. And they make this noise that you don't really hear very often in the United States, and that noise is this. Sorry to the wood pigeon community for that. And while we certainly have types of pigeons in the United States, this large bugger isn't one of them. Look at him. He's already had 3 courses. He's going in for his second dessert. Greedy bastard. On the other hand, when I think of the soundtrack to American yards, there's only one creature that comes to mind. Chainsaw Jim from next door, but also crickets. Now, I talked about these excitable creatures before on Lost in the Pond, so I won't be propagating their sinful activities any further. But suffice to say, that recognizable sound, so that was a bee, that was awful,
that was not
is very
cricket.
prevalent throughout Midwestern summers. In Britain, the same is true of these. For a country that's reluctant to air its dirty laundry in public, Britain has no problem doing just that with clothes straight out of the washing machine. Now, there are some drawbacks to doing this. Number 1, the pegs can help deteriorate the fabric. And number 2, it takes flipping ages. But on the plus side, it's eco-friendly, your clothes flap in the wind in a really pleasing way, and they end up smelling like Britain. But after moving to America, I was surprised to find a distinct lack of washing lines in people's yards. And that makes it sound like I've been snooping, but the truth is, I have. Now, of course, there will be
What the
Americans
hell?
watching this going, we have a clothesline, because all Americans sound like Kermit the Frog for some reason. Or, we had a clothesline in the 70s, or whatever. Right, there are exceptions. And there are a couple of good reasons for this. Firstly, the United States doesn't do the whole let's have a washer and dryer in one combined unit thing. They just have really effective dryers. And the second reason is that in parts of the United States, homeowners associations have actually moved to ban it, citing them as eyesores that could devalue the property. However, a few years ago, several states did pass right to dry laws, which specifically forbid those associations placing ban on clotheslines. But even with a sharper gaze on the environmental benefits, America still ain't got nothing on Britain. Of course, if my neighbours...
Alright, do you really think Americans care about the environment? No. I mean, some do, but using a dryer is way too convenient, and people just... no one's gonna do that.
Mental benefits, America still ain't got nothing on Britain. Of course, if my neighbours are so reluctant to see my socks and my underpants and that mysterious Princess Leia bikini, perhaps they should consider the size of this. Firstly, let me clarify, if you're confused and you think the word fencing is used here to indicate that British people use their gardens for sword fighting, you're wrong. That was phased out in the 90s. Fencing as in the protective perimeter around your yard. And in Britain, front yards don't so much as have a fence, but often a brick wall and a gate. These walls can range in height from half a Danny DeVito to an entire Danny DeVito. It's also not uncommon in Britain for both the front and the backyard to be surrounded by a hedge. Where you might see a fence, usually that of the wooden variety, is in the back garden, and this is often replicated in the United States. But there are a couple of areas within the world of fences that America does things differently. Firstly, I was kind of thrown aback by the vast amount of front yards that don't have anything. Not a fence, not a hedge, not an army of gnomes. And on the one hand, I like this because it seems quite inviting, but on the other, it does encourage people to trespass onto Chainsaw Jim's yard. What Chainsaw Jim really needs is a white picket fence, something that's famously common to the United States. But one area where fencing tends to be more prevalent is the American backyard. And while this can indeed include wooden fences, there's one type of fence you'll see here that is not common in Britain: chain link. And I understand that most Americans probably don't give these fences a second thought. But to me, they're amazing, and one of these days I'm going to install one so tall I can use my garden to have a steel cage match.
That is actually true, though. There's so many of those, like, just everywhere. It doesn't matter where in the United States you go, you're going to see that. Oh, voice crack. But yeah, for those of you who do have yards, I want you guys to comment down below. What kind of fence do you have? And like, try and describe what it looks like. Does anyone have like a massive front gate with like gargoyles on the side? Let me know. That'd be pretty cool.
So tall, I can use my garden to have a steel cage match. When I entered my first spring here in the United States, one thing that really stood out to me was the prevalence of sprinklers. People stick them out of their front lawns, and we don't do this in the UK because our sprinklers are placed in the clouds. But because of a Midwestern climate that doesn't really lend itself to effective lawn care, sprinklers, I suppose, are pretty essential. And I can tell you from experience, on a hot summer's day, if you're walking down the street and one of them accidentally goes off on you, it can be quite a pleasant experience unless you're carrying your phone. Once again, if you've been watching my videos for any length of time, you'll know that there are two constants: my confused expression and the fact that my videos always come back to size. And yards are absolutely no different. Let me tell you a story. When I was approximately one Danny DeVito tall, I, like any child, used to play in my garden. By Britain's standards, this garden was of relatively average size. So whenever my rich friend from the village over invited me round to his, I couldn't believe that his garden was so big that his dad had built him a miniature railway. By Britain's standards, this could have been the garden of a millionaire. Or not, because after moving to the United States, I realized that no, that's the size of everyone's garden here. In that childhood garden, I was banned from playing soccer because you're only ever 5 feet away from the kitchen window. However, at my in-laws' house in Indiana, I don't think I could have hit the window if I'd tried, and I did try.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, before we finish, a quick rapid fire.
Then again, Indiana is in the Midwest, so like, of course they're gonna have huge lawns. Like, everything is spread out. Like, if you're in Indiana, you literally have to have a car. You have to have a car to get to work. You have to get a car to blah, 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 blah. You have to have a car to do anything. And that's because I visited there before. Everything is just spread out. It's basically suburbia, suburban America. That's the best way to describe it.
Did try. Now, before we finish, a quick rapid fire of miscellaneous items. Hanging flower baskets. Which country does them more? Britain. Gnomes. Garden gnomes. Britain again, although you do find them in the US according to my Twitter feed. Barbecue pits, definitely America.
Yes.
I don't remember seeing one of those at all.
We have so many.
In Britain. We do have barbecues, but we don't have the pit often. I don't think anyway. I never had one. Why didn't I have one?
Did
Mom?
you?
Dad?
Did you guys?
Bugs. I'm not sure that either country has more bugs than the other. They just have different types. Midwestern gardens will get way more mosquitoes, fireflies, things like that. Britain, you'll see more slugs and snails than you do here. Who has more flowers in their garden? Again, this might come down to the type rather than the quantity. But having said that, I think British gardens can be perceived to be more flowery because their gardens are smaller, so they have to pack more in. Which country's gardens are more likely to have a pond? I don't know. The answer to that question is lost in one. That's it for this episode. Let me know in the comments below if you reckon...
Bro, that was hilarious. Wait, let's see what he said.
Nice, some of these differences, or if they were surprising to you. And if you haven't had a chance to subscribe to my channel, make sure you do so at the end of this video so that my videos don't get lost in the pond. Big shout out.
Yes, sir. Alright, guys. That was 5 ways British and American yards / gardens are very different. Like I said, comment down below. Let me know what your yard looks like. That sounds so creepy, but I don't know. I'm just curious. But yeah, that's gonna be it for today's video. Thank you guys for watching, and I'm gonna catch you guys in the next one. Peace.